Best genre of music for every decade. As always, totally subjective. The best music genre of the 50s surely has to be rock and roll. This was the beginning of what became one of music's biggest genres for the last 75 plus years. Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Buddy Holly, etc. What began as a fad that most people thought was eventually going to go away ballooned into one of music's most important genres. That was the infancy for it. That was the birth of rock and roll. That to me is the best genre of the 50s. Best music genre of the 60s to me is going to be rock and roll once more. Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, CCR, the Who, etc. The British Invasion largely dominating music throughout that time frame. Rock and roll obviously began in the 50s, but the evolution of it was beautiful into the 1960s, where I firmly believe it is the most talented era of music ever. So for that reason, I feel like the 60s best genre easily is rock and roll. Best genre of music for the 70s to me is actually going to be a tie between rock and disco. I feel like the latter half of the 70s was largely disco, whether it was Casey and the Sunshine Band, the Village People, Earth, Wind and Fire, the Bee Gees. The early 70s, though, you had a little band called Led Zeppelin that came about and made shockwaves throughout the music industry. A lot of good singer-songwriters flourished in the 70s as well, Elton John, David Bowie, etc. But I feel like if you were to ask one genre or even two genres, in this case, rock and disco, to me, that is the tie for the 1970s. The best music genre of the 80s to me is going to easily be pop, probably the easiest decade to decide, having Michael Jackson, the biggest artist of all time, Madonna, Prince, the rise of music television. Hair metal was big throughout the 80s. It was the infancy of rap as well throughout the 1980s. It eventually blew up in the 90s, but I do feel like the 80s largely was run by pop, and I'm not sure that's much of a debate at all. The best genre of music for the 1990s to me is going to be hip-hop now. Shout out to grunge music, Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, especially in the Seattle area. They made a lot of noise, but the 90s is the golden age of hip-hop. It's the golden age of just, you had Tupac, you had Biggie, you had Nas, you had Jay-Z, you had the rise of Eminem eventually later on in the late 90s. This was the golden age for a reason. I feel like when folks look back at when was hip-hop at its best, the 1990s is the easy answer. That to me is the best genre of music for the 90s. Best music genre of the 2000s to me is going to be hip-hop. I almost went with a tie here between hip-hop and pop, because pop had Britney Spears, you had Christina Aguilera, you had Beyonce, you had Usher, you had many more. But when it comes to hip-hop, though, you had Lil Wayne, you had Kanye West, you had 50 Cent, you had the continuation of Eminem. I feel like largely for as good as both genres were, I would take hip-hop if you were asking me right now. That to me is the best genre of the 2000s. The best music genre of the 2010s to me is going to be hip-hop once more, 3 decades in a row. Not really much of a competition here. I feel like pop was obviously really good in the 2010s as well, but streaming era especially, Drake, Kanye West, Kendrick Lamar, etc., they helped dominate the new streaming era of music. 2010s largely kind of similar to the 80s, where there really was only one choice in my opinion. That choice is hip-hop. 2020s, you can let me know down below in the comment section what you think 6 years in is the best